Welcome, everybody, to a special reaction episode of the Amateur Experts podcast, where we are experts of absolutely nothing. I'm your host, Landon Oliver, here with my co host, Andrew Scott.
What's popping? Free Carson Wentz, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, so if you listen to the show, I'm sure you probably know where we're heading with this one. Obviously, it's not going to be a full episode, although we probably could make it one. I mean, we spend plenty of time talking about shit, but we just wanted to get this, out of the way, so that way everybody wasn't waiting all weekend for our reaction takes to this
We know you're
trade.
sitting on the edge of the seat just waiting for our reaction,
Yeah,
obviously.
we know you want to hear what we have to say, um, so yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Carson Wentz traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a third round pick this year. Unbelievable. And a conditional second rounder that turns into a first if he play, or which is going to be next year, if he plays 70% of the snaps and the Colts make the playoffs, or he plays 75% of the snaps outright. So more than likely, I mean, unless
So
things just
basically,
go,
like
if things
this
go,
this is this is like an injury thing. Like
yes, yeah, they
he's
would
either
protect,
like it's not
they're
like it's
protecting
not like
themselves.
quarterbacks aren't gonna play like 60%. Like he's either gonna play like 99% of the snaps or he's not.
Yeah.
So
So
like
so here's the hope is we get up by a bunch of points real early in the game and then we just bench him the rest of the time.
every
Because we're
single game of the
yeah,
season.
every game because we're just up by like 30. So
I mean, if that happens, that means he had one hell of a year.
yeah,
So
and seeing if
I'm
we
here for
bench him and he
that.
doesn't play 75% of the snaps, then we get to keep that that first rounder. So,
Right. Have a hell of
uh
a year and keep a first round
but
pick. Yeah, that's some big brain shit.
yeah, so but yeah, it was basically just a protection clause in case of injury, because he does have a pretty I wouldn't say like extensive injury history, but he does have some question marks in that
The ones he
department.
has have been kind of nasty.
Yeah, and a few of them
Backs
were. I
and
mean,
knees
I know
and
like the major ones actually weren't even his fault. So I mean, you can't really call the guy injury prone. They're just kind of freak
well, much of
accidents.
what's wrong with Carson Wentz isn't his fault, but we got
Well,
we got
let
time to get into
yeah,
that. He's
we'll
got
get
his
into
own
that a little
faults,
bit
but
because I know we differ on opinion a little bit, which is weird, me being a Colts fan. But you know, as much as that is going to affect what I say and my rooting interest, I do try to be objective about things. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it. I'm going to let you go first because I know you're a big Wentz fan, and
yeah,
I just
yeah, man.
I kind of
I
want
am.
I kind of want to let you do your thing before I I kind of take over a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've been a big Carson Wentz believer since he came out of college. Big reason being the Rams just so happened to trade up for the first overall pick. My favorite team, of course, my rooting interest, decided to trade up for the number one overall pick the year that Jared Goff and Carson Wentz were coming into the draft, and they were presumed 1 and 2. And I was banging the table. I was hoping and praying for Carson Wentz. I liked him a lot more than Jared Goff, and so yeah, I've been a big fan of his. I've been, I've watched him closely, and man, I think if there was a hope for Carson Wentz to be Carson Wentz again, this was the only legit landing spot for it to happen was the Colts. And I'm so happy it happened because now I truly get to find out, did I just completely miss on Carson Wentz, or was Philly the problem, and is Carson Wentz really, the player that we think he is? Because I mean, his rookie year was so-so, but I think it was his sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken, that he was on his way to winning MVP. I wish I could confirm that right
Yes,
now,
it
but I know
was. It was
it
his
was his
second
sophomore
year.
year.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah,
2017.
his first year was so-so. His second year, um, all he did as a sophomore quarterback in the NFL was had a 101.9 passer rating, a 33-7 touchdown to interception ratio, 253, basically 254 passing yards a game, and he was third in MVP voting that year. And by most people's account, before he got injured against the Rams late in the season, I think he ended up missing like the last 4 or 5
Four
games, and then of
games.
course the playoff run of the Super Bowl victory and things like that. Um, he was the MVP of the league for the majority of people up to that point before that terrible injury happened. And the common thing is Frank Wright was his offensive coordinator at the time. who just so happens to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts at the moment. And he didn't play terrible in 18 and 19 without Frank Reich, but he definitely didn't look the same. And then there's been other injuries that have, other than ACL injury, there's been a back injury as well. And I just think if he has a shot at coming back and being the 2017 Carson Wentz, which wasn't, it's not like we're talking about a few months ago. This was a long time ago, 2017. But if it's going to happen, I think Frank Reich is the one that's going to make it happen. I think the fact that he was he took. I remember looking at this earlier. I wish I could remember it exactly. Last year, 11 sacks were accredited to him, like it was his fault. He had owned the ball too long, whatever the case may be. The rest of the sacks, which was the most in the league, were all on the rest of the team.
Yeah, so
Like
Carson Wentz, just to put the numbers out there for you to kind of get a bigger picture of what Andrew's trying to say. Um, the Philadelphia Eagles gave up 65 sacks as a team last year. That's to Hurts and Wentz, but on the game started. Carson Wentz took 50 of those sacks, by himself. Jalen Hurts took the rest of them. And
and only
only
11 of
11 out of
those
the
were
50
accredited to his
are
fault.
accredited to his as being
Right.
his
So
fault.
that tells you that there's two things. Either one, he's not getting protection, or two, guys aren't getting open, which I think are two very accurate things because of the injuries at the wide receiver position, at the offensive line, and then just the lack of talent, really. I mean, like Zach Ertz is that they're trying to trade him just about as hard as they're trying to trade Carson Wentz, and Deshaun Jackson stays hurt. Jalen Rager, it's too early to tell, but who knows what's going on with him. I mean, there's just so many question marks around there to where the team really hasn't improved much since Frank Reich left. Like there really hasn't been a whole lot of
So
positives
so here's an
off that
interesting
team.
stat for you to kind of back that up as well. So since I believe it was since 2017, which was going into Wentz's second year, or actually I think it was since 2016. So since Wentz's rookie year, the Eagles have drafted one Pro Bowl player in like total since his rookie year, since he was drafted. Do you know who that player was?
I do not know.
It was Carson Wentz. He
that's
is the
that's
only Pro Bowl player they have drafted since they took him.
that's sad, but I mean, it's not as sad as it is. It's not surprising, and so I mean, you as a Carson, I'm a Carson Wentz fan. I mean, just like I whenever watching him through the draft process, I just enjoyed his game. I thought he was a much more enjoyable quarterback to watch than Jared Goff was. Whenever I was looking at that was the first year I can really say that like I took a deep dive at both quarterbacks because I had such a big interest with the Rams being the number one pick, and I was at a point where I was watching sports more than I was playing sports, and so just watching those two guys, like I just I got attached to Wentz more than I did to Golf, and I don't know, man. I think that there's so much. I think that 2017 and 2018 and 2019, I don't think 2020 is the norm for this guy. And whenever you take him out of that situation with no pass protection, with weapons that are either hurt or below par, like everybody thought Travis Fulgham was like the new hotness for a little bit, and now for like the last month of the season, nobody even knew who the guy was because he just completely disappeared. Like he was throwing to practice squad guys for the most part. If like looking at other teams in the league, like these guys wouldn't be on their roster, and he's throwing to these guys. He's getting protected by practice squad guys for the most part.
Yeah, I
It's
saw something
just
tonight. It said like, even as great as Tom Brady is, can you imagine last year in Tampa if Tom Brady took 50 sacks?
right.
You think they're playing in the Super
Right.
Bowl?
And Carson Wentz isn't as much of a statue as Brady is either. Like he's not the most mobile quarterback in the world, but he can move within the pocket though, if he has the confidence. And I think that's the biggest thing that's been lacking in his game since 2017 is he lost his offensive coordinator, the guy that he, felt the most comfortable with. And then from 2017 to 2019, there was a bunch of injuries and weapons that were lost. And then 2020, you go out and you draft what a lot of people think is your replacement. And so you're rehabbing from injuries, your replacement's getting drafted, and there's no position in the NFL more important to have confidence than quarterback. Like it's cornerback and DB. Like those two guys, like if they don't have a type of swagger and confidence to them, I'm concerned. And Carson Wentz just I don't feel like he had that. And there's plenty of reasons to see why he wouldn't have that. But there's just so much untapped potential there, I think, where like so I mean, he's going into when now let's stop talking about the Eagles so much because they don't even deserve this much attention for how terrible they've been run over the last few years. Let's talk about the Colts who do deserve the attention because Chris Ballard has built that team the right way. He came in and said, you know, I want to build
Inside
um
out.
I want to build the culture, you know, like the culture is the most important thing, a winning culture. And he brought players in that he believed in that, and he has just continued to hit on this. And you've got the secondary has some questions in it, but outside of the secondary, the defense is pretty solid. You know, left tackle is a question mark now, but the rest of the offensive line, for the most part, is pretty much solid. You've got an incredible running game with Jonathan Taylor, who just looks like he's ready to you know to step in and be a top running back in the league coming up, which is something that Wentz hasn't had. That what they hoped they had Miles Sanders, but never came to fruition at his time, at least in Philly. And the weapons is still a question mark. We'll see what happens, you know. But I mean, even knowing what we know now, Michael Pittman, I think is a great receiver, you know, and that they don't have a terrible tight end room, even with the guys that are set to be free agents. And I do think that they're going to bring in at least somebody, either through the draft or through free agency, that's going to help Wentz from that department. But regardless, even without knowing that, it's hard to feel like it's not an upgrade at the you know skill position. And offensive line obviously is a huge upgrade, and definitely a better defense that he's playing with, to where it's worth the risk. Like people were making a huge deal out of the boatload that the Rams paid for Matt Stafford. And look, granted, Matt Stafford has had a longer career to this point, so there's a bigger sample size in play here talking about this. But Matt Stafford has a career passer rating of 89.9. Wentz has a career of 89.2. Stafford has a passer rating over 100 in 1 out of 12 seasons. Wentz is 2 out of 5. He's had a passer rating over 100. I know people have mixed feelings about passer rating as a stat, but
Well, and his
um,
other passer rating, other than the one last year, I think his 2019 was like 92 or something like that. Like
right.
they were in the low 90s.
And Stafford, you know, Stafford's 33 years old and Wentz is only 28. And you're talking about a contract that you traded for where you've basically got 2 years to where you're not going to like Wentz is going to be the Colts quarterback this upcoming season and the season after, which is the 2 years that the picks are tied up for. And after that, that contract becomes very cuttable. And if you determine after 2 years is a good enough look to where you can say this guy is or isn't going to give us over the hump, and if he isn't, you're able to cut bait and refresh. And I don't think that you can't put the importance on having a top level quarterback in the NFL. And Carson Wentz has at least showed at one point in his career he was like he was top 3 in MVP voting and would have won it most likely if he hadn't gotten injured. You know, so I mean, he's been in that upper echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL at some point in his career, where other than Deshaun Watson and Stafford, nobody else really on the. And you can argue Stafford hasn't even been that high for most people. People, quarterbacks that are available in the offseason haven't been that high, you know. So I mean, it's a risk, but I think it's one that whenever you have a roster built as well as the Colts have built, it's a risk worth taking. And I think that, you know, I mean, like it just as a Colts fan, I'm excited because I finally get to see for sure 100%. Was it the Eagles? Was it the Colts? You know, was it Wentz? We get to find out. And the Colts still have more work to do, but I think this was a step in the right direction if they want to go for it all, which is the
Look,
whole point.
I just
So
want to let everybody know, like, this is recorded, and you just said you were a Colts fan, so this will live in infamy.
Did I say I was a Colts fan?
You did. You
I
did.
I, I mean,
As a
I
you said, as a
basically
Colts fan, I'm excited, and I was just like, a little bit of
well,
me just lit up right then. I was like, yes.
I meant as a Wentz fan, but essentially now I am basically like the Colts are basically my 1B now with how much I've loved Wentz over the years.
Hey
So
man, come on over. We're glad to have
I mean,
you.
I'll never be able to switch from the Rams, especially now that we got Stafford. But but that was kind of that was my piece. I was excited to see any other place. I would have felt terrible for Wentz because like the only other logical places was like the Bears and things like that. And it's like there was no hope really there. So like I'm just excited for Wentz as a Wentz fan, not as a Colts fan. Just to clear that up. Um, I'm excited for Wentz that he landed in the best possible chance to revive his career. And this is kind of a thing where it's like, if it doesn't work, then it's hard to believe it's going to work anywhere. So that's my piece. I'm going to turn it over to our resident actual Colts fan. Since I slipped up and set up as a Colts fan, now I'm going to
Hey,
let
look,
the actual Colts fan
it's on
speak.
video, it's on audio, it's
Right,
recorded.
right,
So
yeah. It's on
I'm
the
gonna
internet
change that to
forever.
my text tone actually as you say that. Um, all right, so I've kind of been holding off. I mean, I've kind of chirped in a couple times just to kind of clarify what Andrew was meaning. Um, but okay, here's another stat real quick that I thought was interesting.
Okay,
So in 2020, there is no other player that had a higher dropped passing rate than Carson Wentz. Almost 7% of all passes he thrown were dropped.
it's not tough to believe either.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty interesting. All right, so here's my take on it. If you kind of listen to the past episodes, you kind of know where I stand on Wentz as a player. Um, I think his mechanics obviously need work.
Hmm.
He needs to kind of be coached up some and get rid of the mistakes. Obviously, the talent's there. Uh, so he is going to, I think, without question, the best situation for him. Um, like you touched on earlier, the Eagles gave up 60 something sacks last year. 50 of them were to Wentz, but only 11 of them were his fault. The Colts total last year gave up 19. So that's a big difference. And obviously, they have to fix that left tackle situation. But I
Right.
think having Quentin Nelson as your left guard, you can even bring in just a guy that's, not even a top tier left tackle. Like we saw in the
Yeah, takes
playoffs,
a
once
lot of
Castan,
stress off the left
yeah.
tackle whenever you
So
got a
so we
guy
saw,
that good.
in kind of like Colts fans, if you are listening, like you kind of know what I'm talking about with Jared Valdir, in the playoffs last year. Jared Valdir, I think, played really good football. It's because I mean, anytime you line up next to Quentin Nelson, you're you're pretty much, you're having to do half the amount of work that you would normally.
Right.
So it's the biggest takeaway and the biggest win in this whole situation for me is that I did not want to give up a first rounder. And granted, next year's is a conditional first, and more than likely it gets hit, but I can kind of push it off next year because if things work out well this year, I'm okay giving one up next year. And
Right.
that would be the scenario. Um, so I was under the impression we were going to give up a second rounder. And to find out when it went down, that it was actually a third round pick this year. We get to keep our pick at 21. We get to keep our pick in the 50s. I was immediately like, okay, it's worth the
Yeah.
risk. Like
Yeah.
I would probably be okay with this. Um, and knowing how Chris Ballard is, I know me personally, I've only made it through, I mean, probably 30, 40 of the top prospects in the draft so far this year that I've actually, had time to sit down and watch. I think I've only got about 11 true first round grades on about 11 guys that I feel comfortable spending that first round pick on. And after that, everybody's just kind of right there. There's not too much of a drop off, especially at the offensive tackle position. Um, and I think this is going to be a thing where you see Chris Ballard take that 21, trade back, get a second this year, maybe a second next year, um, and maybe even, a third or something, later down the line, or a fifth or something like that, and kind of recoup those picks he just traded. And so essentially, this will be you know, almost a wash. And uh, but if it doesn't happen, if he is sitting there at 21 and there's a guy, because we always know, there's always somebody that drops every year. There's a
Right.
guy that everybody picks in the top 10, like this guy's not making it past number 8. And then he's sitting there right at that, 19, 20, 21, like Justin Jefferson, this last year. Um, so I think the options are there. I think they can definitely shore up that left tackle spot, but I don't think that's the most important position right now. I think edge rush for us would be the most important position that I would try to throw some assets at. But the great thing is, so the Colts went from second in cap space before this trade. After they make this trade, they now they fall all the way down to fifth. Uh, so they're actually one of 5 teams now with still over $40 million in cap space.
Which is something that,
Um,
especially with the environment right now, a lot of teams cannot even compete with that. So,
yeah, so it's definitely it feels good, and there's going to be I think they released the cap floor is 180 this year, and that's the floor. I think I kind of see it heading more towards about 185, 190, but the
once
cap floor.
the front offices know what the cap is going to be for
This is
sure,
whenever you can see kind of
stuff is
moves being
really
made.
going to pop
Yeah.
off. Yeah,
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 I
it's
knew
going to be a lot of
whenever
fun.
they announced that thing yesterday about the floor, I was like, okay, this is when things kind of can start getting done. And we
Right.
saw a few different teams cut a few different more players today. Nothing real notable, but I do think you're going to see a lot of guys, because you got to take into account too, which we're kind of getting off the Wentz topic, but this kind of goes hand in hand. You're going to see a lot of guys take these 1 year deals to kind of play with some of these contenders this year,
Hmm.
because that new TV deal hits next year. The
Right.
pandemic should hopefully be over. Cap's going to skyrocket again. They can cash in, more next year. Now, if you're an NFL player, I know, the old adage is always, strike while the iron's hot, take the money while you got the opportunity. Um, but
Not
I
a
think
whole
you're
lot
going to
of
see a lot
guys
of
are going to get
guys.
that multi-year bag this year, though.
Yeah, and teams are smart. They know how to work a way around it, where if they want a bigger name guy, maybe they kind of backload it to where once that cap rises, the money hits a little bit later as opposed to this year, to kind of save some space for this year. But I mean, there's always ways around it. But I think you are going to see a lot of guys take, 1, 2 year deals, um, to kind of go play with these contenders, like the Rams, or teams that could possibly have space that they can work around the Packers, teams like that.
Right.
So I think the Colts issues can very easily be fixed. Obviously, when you have a GM that drafts as well as Chris Ballard does, um, I mean, it's it's never you're never out too far of a rebuild. So I've got a list here, I think, of Colts players under 28, or 28 or under. And just listen to this list right now. So these are all the Colts players that are at age that when the season begins, they will be at age, because right now Wentz is 27. By the time the season rolls around, he'll be 28. So this is all 28 and under. So we have Carson Wentz, DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard, Ryan Kelly, Kenny Moore, Braden Smith, Jonathan Taylor, Julian Blackman, Michael Pittman, Kari Willis, Bobby Okereke, Mark Glowinski, which surprised the shit out of me, Naheem Hines, Grover Stewart, and our punter and our kicker, the two Rigos. Um, so
Goggles.
yeah. So all those guys are 28 or under. A lot of them, and they kind of included that age 28 to include Wentz. A lot of them are 25 and under. Um, so everybody's kind of talking about this win now, like, oh well, the Colts are desperate, they're in win now mode. It's like, dude, these guys are still 2 3 years away from even hitting their primes, like,
Right.
and they're already great, all pro level players. So with the way Ballard drafts, I'm not so much as worried about the draft pick, or picks that we possibly gave up. I think it's absolutely worth the risk. So what I did do pretty much all day today, as soon as it announced, and I've kind of been doing it on and off for the last few days whenever things have kind of really heated up. Um, I went through NFL Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, you'll know they have a condensed version of the games because obviously I can't just sit here and watch, full TV games and all 22 tape, uh, you know, of multiple games for a day. But each game is basically about 30 minutes long, but it does show every single play of the game and just kind of cuts out, the TV cameras, the TV, junk, the whistles, the breaks, the timeouts, all that kind of stuff. So each game, it shows every play of the game in 30 minutes. Or I mean, give or take, a few minutes here and there, depending on the game, but it's right around that 30-minute mark. So what I did was I excluded his rookie year, even though that was a year with Frank. And I started from year 2017, 2018, 2019, and then this last season. And I kind of, I didn't look up any stats. I didn't look up his stats for the game. I didn't look up scores of the game. I just watched the player, watch the situation around him, see the play calls, see how things kind of unfolded. And needless to say, it was kind of a mixture of a few different things that I saw with my own eyes. So one thing we will say about 2017 is, and I don't know how much of this is Frank because they did say, even though Peterson called the plays, Frank was very instrumental in setting up the game plan for the week. And there was very, very little, I think, that Frank didn't have to do with that offense because it was very, very similar to ours that we've been running the last couple of years or so. Obviously, with Carson Wentz, there's a lot more motion um, than there was with Philip Rivers, and I think that actually kind of restricted last year's playbook because you weren't able to call all those rollouts and RPOs, but so in 2017, the offense, it was just like a well-oiled machine. I mean, there was guys running open all over the place. There was great protection. They got him out of the pocket, able to kind of create on the run. And that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. And I think it was, because of watching Philip Rivers last year and seeing what a mobile quarterback can do in that Frank Reich type of offense where they want to get these guys out in space. They want to get these guys open and away from pressure. Um, and Philip Rivers can manage pressure because he's so good at the line of scrimmage, but I think it just kind of opens up the Colts playbook even more here. And seeing the evolution of once Frank Reich left, there were still some remnants of it in 2018. In 2019, and especially 2020, it looked like an almost completely different offense. I mean, it wasn't even remotely the same. And some of that might have to do with the players, with the injuries and the receivers and stuff like that. But just the play calling itself, the last couple of years, I mean, it was almost night and day. I mean, it wasn't like I was even watching the same team that I was in 2017. And I think that kind of really surprised me, even with it being because I figured, when Doug Peterson's still there, they're still running that offense. And they weren't. I mean, like being completely honest, that he like especially in 2019, you can kind of see things really kind of taper off. And then 2020 last year, it was just the play calling was absolutely abysmal. And like I said, I don't know if you can contribute it to, wide receivers getting stuck because last year I did see a lot of receivers getting stuck in press coverage and they couldn't separate. There was almost no separation any game. And he did face a lot of pressure. Um, but coincidentally, along with that is you see his mechanics every year just slightly get worse and worse and worse. And I think, if I'm guessing, it has a lot to do with trust. So the biggest thing you want with your quarterback is, like Andrew alluded to, confidence. And if you don't feel like you can trust those receivers, if you don't feel like you can trust your offensive line, then
Preach.
then you I mean your whole game, it kind of just falls apart. And you can see remnants of, and he had a really good season in 2019, but you can, there's glimpses there where you can kind of start seeing, you know, things kind of turn. And it was almost, because he was throwing to almost nobody in, that year in 2019, and he still led them to the postseason. And
Hmm.
they might have even beat Seattle if he hadn't have got taken out, because it was an illegal hit. Let's call a spade a spade. It was an illegal hit by Jadeveon Clowney, and he
Yeah,
didn't get flagged
100%.
for it. It was 100% an illegal hit,
Hmm.
and knocked him out. Which is another injury that people bring. They say he's injury prone. I mean, that's not really his fault. He can't control an illegal hit. Same thing that he can't control, two guys from the Rams, sandwiching his leg.
Right.
Obviously that's not on purpose, but it's a freak play, but you can't really blame that on him being injury prone.
No, no, they're
Um,
freak accidents.
yeah. So I mean, I don't think the injury prone label, and even with that, he's only missed, I think he might have missed less than 14 games in his career. And, we're coming up in year 5. So as a team that's dealt with Andrew Luck, being injured and stuff, 15 games, it's not that bad.
The Colts have learned the hard way how to protect the quarterback.
Yes,
So
we did. Yeah, we did. So he's going to a team that gave up 19 sacks last year with a dude that was a complete statue. Like, I think I'm more mobile than Phillip Rivers. And
right, yeah.
And so you're able, Frank's going to be able to open up the offense more. He's going to be able to get Carson easy reads, easy looks. And the biggest thing is it doesn't have anything to do with football. And this is where I might kind of lose some people. So I did a lot of reading today um on the relationship of Frank Reich and Carson Wentz. And the bond that these two guys have goes so far beyond football that I think it can't be understated enough what they mean to each other. I'm talking about Frank Wright was the guy that officiated his wedding. He's the guy that was there for Bible study and baptism. They share such of almost like a father son bond with their faith. And he's a guy that knows what makes Carson Wentz tick. He knows his faults, he knows his strengths, he knows where he wants to be at in life and in football. And if there is one guy that will set him up to succeed, and there's one guy that can instill that confidence and instill that trust back into Carson Wentz, because it's all about trust. It's Frank Reich.
You're
And
preaching to the choir, baby.
so
That's what I've been
so
saying for a couple weeks, man. I'm
yeah.
so
Now,
glad he landed on the Colts. It could still not work out, but man, if it's gonna work out,
yeah, now we don't
this is
know.
where
Yeah,
it's gonna
and
work out.
really, and we don't know, it might not work out. This might be, last year might have been the start of just, a collapse.
Yeah,
And
could
I
be.
don't think Carson Wentz is going to regain that 2017 form. I don't. I think that ship has sailed. I think the ACL injury, it's a lot more mental than it is physical, but I
Well,
think that's
and
kind of
it's
played
tough to
a
be an
role.
MVP quarterback in the NFL because that means basically you're saying you're the best
Yeah, I
quarterback in
don't.
the
Yeah,
league.
that's what I'm saying. Like you're splitting
Like
hairs here. I
I've
don't
got
think he's
I've
going to
got
be a top
a
3 quarterback, but I don't think he was what he showed last year either. I
I've got
think if you look,
another list for you.
so if I let me finish this though real quick. So I
Okay.
think if you look at his 2018 and 2019 seasons,
Yeah,
I think that's a lot more where he's going to land at.
that's
And
fair.
that's
Yeah.
the thing with the Colts is it's such a good roster that I think if you do have a quarterback that plays, he's got a passer rating in the 90s, and he's only
2018, 2019 wins the AFC South next year
and
with that
possibly
roster.
I think 2018, 2019 wins that game in Buffalo.
Right.
I think they can actually make a playoff run if he can get back to that point.
Right.
No, obviously, Kansas City's the favorite. I still think Buffalo's, possibly a better roster depending on, Josh Allen again next year if he doesn't regress.
Sure.
Um, but but I think this was best case scenario for the Colts if you look around where things went after the Matt Stafford trade. You have obviously they were in on Stafford, but whenever they kind of heard the price of everything, Chris Ballard's not gonna, you know, He's going to give, if this has taught us anything, it's what I've been saying. Like, that dude doesn't blink. He's not desperate. He gives you what he thinks his value is for a player, and he sticks with it. Whether you want to, if he says, well, we wanted 2 first-round picks, he'll say, well, good luck. Hope you get it. But
So would you rather have had, like, say the Colts are picking where the Rams are, like, not considering where your position is, but what the Rams gave up for Stafford, assuming that that most likely that you guys are giving up a first next year, would you have rather had the Stafford package and gotten Stafford, or the Wentz package and gotten Wentz?
I mean, honestly, it's hard to know. It's too early to tell right now. I mean, if you
That's
ask me
fair.
a year from now, I think I'd have an answer for you. But
Right.
we don't know how Stafford's going to play. We don't know how
Right.
Wentz is going to play. We got to let these guys play first before we can.
I agree.
Obviously, I'm always going to take the lesser package for the
Right.
quarterback.
Yeah, but if Stafford comes out and looks like an MVP, and Wentz comes out and just
Well,
looks
then
like a
yeah.
middle of the road
Well, yeah.
quarterback, then
Obviously, you're
it's a
going to want
different
Stafford
discussion.
if
Yeah.
he's yeah.
But yeah, no, and that's such a good point. Is like, people, it's the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, we're gonna give this draft a grade right now,
Yeah, I mean,
and we're gonna.
you don't know. There's so much
No,
that
you
goes in,
never
and
know.
like we just talked about, it's so like it goes so much deeper than football, especially at that quarterback position. So,
So speaking of quarterback position, let me rumble off some names. And you tell, so we're talking about a third round pick and then a second round pick that could possibly be a first round pick for what in my mind is right there in the middle of the road as who I would want to be my starting quarterback next year. So no particular order. Here's some quarterbacks that I've got ahead of Carson Wentz as a Carson Wentz, fan, lover, all those things. Mahomes, Rodgers, Russ, Watson, Josh Allen, Dak, Lamar, Brady, Kyler, Stafford, Tannehill, Herbert, Joe Burrow, maybe Kirk Cousins, and that's 15. We're like, we're right there in the middle, and that's where I really like. I think that I think Wentz has more upside than Cousins. I think you know what you have in Cousins. So right there, that 14, 15 range is where I really start to struggle, excluding quarterbacks that are going to be drafted
I
in this
would
upcoming draft. You're talking
I
about
would
Trevor Lawrence
swap.
and those guys. I didn't include them, but
So
it's just a
the
quick
only
list for
thing
you.
with that is I'm not a big Kyler Murray fan.
And
Um,
that's fair to feel that way. Yeah.
I would swap Derek Carr and Kyler Murray. I'd probably rather have Derek Carr.
Oh, shit. So you, like, really aren't a Kyler Murray fan?
No, I think Derek Carr's a great quarterback. I think he's a fantastic
Or you're
quarterback.
just like a really big Derek Carr
Yeah, I
fan?
think Derek Carr is extremely underrated. Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, he
Okay. I
was
mean, that's fair,
I mean, if
but
you like
yeah.
PFF, I mean, he was their number 7 graded quarterback last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So, he had a
it's
fantastic season,
it's
and
a fair take. It's just interesting it's interesting to hear. But
yeah, I think Derek Carr is extremely underrated. I'd probably put him, above Wentz. But outside of that, I don't disagree with any of those guys that you listed. I'm kind of like on the fence. I think I'd rather have the upside of Wentz as opposed to the floor um of some of those dudes, like
like
Kirk
Kirk
Cousins.
Cousins
Yeah,
and yeah, yeah.
yeah, like because the floor is a lot safer with those guys, but the
Mm.
upside's not there. Like, you know,
You know what you're getting.
yeah, we have seen Wentz play at that top 3 quarterback level, but we've also seen him play at you know bottom 30, 32 level. Um, so and honestly, I know we've said this before on the show, but reality often lies somewhere in the middle. Um,
Right.
so I don't think he's going to end up one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think he's going to end up the worst quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to be right there somewhere in the middle. And I I really do like the trade for the Colts as
Hmm.
far as not giving up what people, namely Philadelphia wanted. And really, they were the only suitor. I mean, this was the only situation that made sense. And I think this
Hmm.
is why he was kind of steering his way here. But, now you're going to a team that I think objectively is even more talented than the 2017 Eagles team as far as on offense. Now, obviously, you sign Ty back. We'll see what happens with the wide receiver position, but you get Paris
Man,
Campbell
if
healthy.
they drop a bomb and and sign Allen Robinson or Chris Godwin
I don't know if they'll do
or
that.
something, they might not. But I
I
mean,
think they're more likely to draft a guy.
they've got the cap room
They
that
do,
not very
but
many teams to have to do,
but
and
they've got
so
some
I mean, who
extensions to hand
knows?
out. Leonard and Smith and
Sure,
all
sure,
those guys.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I
I'm
think that's
just,
kind of they're saving most of their cap space. But
hey man,
whenever you can draft like Chris
it would
Ballard,
be and I think that's the way they go. But
yeah, I would. I'm kind of a big fan of. I watched a little bit of Rondale Moore earlier from Purdue, and I think he might be right there around that 21 area, and I would love to kind of see him and Paris Campbell.
you don't think him and Paris Campbell would kind of clash though?
Nah, nah. I think both those guys can play outside. I know Paris Campbell can play outside, and I know the Colts believe he can. I don't think he's just strictly a slot guy.
Rondell Moore is a lot of fun, man. He's one of the most fun players to watch that's coming out
Honestly,
of the
man,
draft.
like I
So,
honestly think if he was um if he was the same size as Jamar Chase, I might actually like Rondell
oh
Moore
my
better.
God, yeah, there would be no way not to. That's one thing he has going against him, man.
Yeah, that's the only thing he has going against him.
His size is it. I mean, yeah, there's a reason why the guys that are are as quick as shifty as Rondell Moore aren't the size of Jamar
Just
Chase. Like that's just
the
not
most impressive
humanly
thing watching him
possible.
is his ability to track the ball. It's just like like he's Deshaun
We're,
Jackson like
yeah,
almost in the way he finds where the ball is almost every
yeah.
time
If
and he just
somebody's getting
tracks
a
it in.
special player whenever they
Yeah.
draft him, it's going to
Yeah,
be a
and
lot of
so
fun to
so
see.
I
Oh
I
my
kind of
God, this
hope he's right
class.
there around. And I mean, he played at Purdue, which is right in Indianapolis's backyard,
Oh my
so
God,
they've had plenty of opportunity to scout him.
that's very true.
So
Yeah,
I'd kind of like
very
to see
true.
that, but we'll see. Obviously, you build from the trenches. I'd love to see them address the tackle spot, but I don't think that's the most important. I'd really like to see an edge rusher added. But like I said, we're getting off topic again. So
I think we hit
what
about all there is to hit on the on-topic portion, though.
yeah,
The
that's
whole
true. Yeah, I think we
point
kind
of
of
this
just
podcast,
touched on um where what we kind of think about Carson Wentz. Obviously, you know, as I've said in some other videos, his mechanics do worry me. They do kind of
they
scare
should.
me, and
Yeah.
um, but I saw his mechanics whenever he was you know at his best as far as like his confidence level. He was just sipping. I honestly didn't realize that he had as strong as an arm as he does.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
That dude's got a freaking cannon,
Hmm.
and I think it's almost a perfect fit for this. I mean, we've seen him in the Frank Reich offense, but just looking at like this Colts offense, like it's almost a perfect fit because it's what as great as Philip Rivers played last year, we were missing some elements there. The mobility, the arm strength. We weren't able to
Right.
really push the ball down the field the way we wanted to with Philip, and we weren't able to kind of open up the playbook as far as those rollouts and those RPOs and you know we were getting excited with Carson Wentz in 2017, and he's throwing to Alshon Jeffrey, who I think's great, but I mean, I really like Michael Pittman. I'm super high on Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the guy's just a phenomenal talent. He's very he reminds me a lot of like Vincent Jackson with the Chargers and the
R.I.P.
Buccaneers. And he loves throwing those 50-50 balls up to these big guys, like Alshon and having them go get it. And I can see the Colts bringing in somebody that's a little more comfortable. I can see them bringing in maybe, a Zach Ertz or a Nelson Aguilar, a guy
Hunter
like that.
Henry.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see with Hunter Henry, but yeah,
Yo.
that'd be pretty as long as, man, we would have such a fragile team. We'd have to like we'd have
Yeah.
to pay our doctors
Hey,
like triple.
if you're gonna go in, you might as well go all in.
Right.
Because if those guys stay healthy, man, yo, I would like that. I would like Hunter Henry to the Colts a lot, bro. With Wentz is so used to working with the tight end already, and it's a
And let's not
gamble.
forget, like, they
It's
could
a
very easily
gamble.
bring Trey Burton back. He's
Trey,
got some
yeah, yeah.
familiarity with Trey
Trey Boo Boo
Burton.
isn't bad at all either. He's a
And
decently talented tight
obviously
end.
Jack Doyle is, I think, Jack Doyle is due to kind of, continue slipping off a little bit, but he's very reliable. And I'm super high on Mo Alley Cox. I think he's just an absolutely fantastic tight end. And I'd
If
really,
the tight end position shakes out like how I think it might, I like Gerald Everett a lot with you guys too.
that could be interesting. There's so many different ways you can attack this. And like I said, whether it's, through the
This just
draft or
makes me excited for the off season. I'm ready.
yeah,
Like
it's coming up, man.
free agency start tomorrow. Or what, man? I'm itching.
Oh man, I
I'm ready.
wish. I wish it was.
Golly, I'm
But
ready.
but yes, so there's some questions, but Paris Campbell, I think, is really talented. But like I said, we were getting excited whenever he was doing RPOs with Corey Clement. And can you imagine Jonathan Taylor now? Like, if anything, I think this might actually upgrade Jonathan Taylor's fantasy value,
Mm-hmm.
as far as having, somebody that's just not a statue in there,
Yeah.
that he can actually, run some of those RPOs and those fakes and read options and stuff
Yeah.
like that
I think it should definitely be a bump to Jonathan Taylor, and it should be a bump to whoever
in the
ends up playing
Colts.
tight end for the Colts.
Yeah. And
And
I think
really,
Michael
and
Pittman gets a pretty significant bump as well.
especially
If T.Y.
especially
doesn't come back.
if they don't add a receiver in free agency, Michael Pittman should definitely be like, he should be at the top of every fantasy analyst's sleeper list and all that type of stuff. Like he should be everybody's late round target if
Yeah.
they don't.
Well, I don't think there's any way they don't add, somebody. They'll
Well,
bring somebody in.
somebody and the guy are different things, though.
Yeah.
Like if they were to bring in like an Allen Robinson, a Chris Godwin, a Kenny Galladay, something like that, that's a lot different than bringing in like a middle of the road type of guy.
Yeah.
But if they don't bring in one of those like clear top
But
five,
see,
six options
that's
at
the
wide
thing with
receiver.
Frank's offense, though, is they spread the ball around so much to so many different guys. There's never really just one, the guy that gets all the targets. It's very spread away. And then well, I'm excited to see how it shakes out. I'm ready for football
Yeah.
season. As a Colts
Oh, me
fan,
too.
obviously I'm going to support him. I hope Frank can fix him.
I'm going to support him too, man. I'm going to be rooting for you guys on the side. I'm a Rams fan first. Obviously, Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFL to me. Can't change my mind, but I've been a Wentz fan since he came out of college, and so
Yeah,
I'm going to
this is
be
very
low key rooting for the Colts, man.
this
Like
is
I
very
hope he does
interesting
well.
because quarterbacks that have that MVP, because like you said, it's very likely that without that injury, he is the MVP that year. And
Yeah,
quarterbacks that have an MVP acumen at the age of 27,
they don't get
they
traded.
don't get moved. Like,
No,
it
no
takes something
shot.
pretty and I honestly don't think the Eagles wanted to trade him. I think that it was just that relationship was so far beyond repair. And obviously we're not privy to what happened. We don't know what happened
Well,
behind the
look, and
scenes.
the Eagles kind of shot themselves in the foot. Like, you can't tell me there's no shot if they don't bench Wentz and start Jalen Hurts and kind of show their hand. Like, if Wentz plays every game last year, even if he plays poorly, if he plays every game and they don't show like this need to move on, there's
Yeah.
no shot that his trade value is this low. Like even if he played poorly, I still think the Eagles could have gotten more out of him if they stuck with him all year and made it look like that he
Oh
was
yeah,
their guy. But
yeah.
they
The
kind of
Eagles
shot
played this the
themselves in the
worst.
foot.
Yeah, they played this the worst way they
And
possibly
look, and
could.
then they're gonna
And
mess around and take a quarterback like 6
sixth
overall
overall, yeah,
in the draft,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
Jalen Hurts
It
isn't even
wouldn't
gonna
surprise
matter.
me. And then
Yeah.
and really, like it almost kind of all started with you know, and I don't really blame him for this, but I mean, it is kind of weak to me to think about. But I think there is some kind of residual stuff there of Nick Foles winning that series. I mean, the guy's the franchise quarterback. He was there for that team. That was his MVP season, and he's gonna
Oh,
every time he walks in to the stadium, there's a statue of his backup right
the
outside the
the the
stadium.
Colts should have just signed, instead of signing Philip Rivers, the Colts should have just signed Nick Foles this year to play for Frank Wright and
And Carson Wentz.
just seen how he did. Like if Foles played well, then you're like, okay, yeah, we can go sign Wentz, because like
Wow.
clearly the
I think
system.
Philip Rivers is clearly a little bit better than Nick Foles.
I'm just saying, at least you would know, if you know, type of thing.
Right. But yeah, so I think that, played some residual things with him where, he's still kind of a little upset that Nick Foles has got this big statue whenever it was his MVP campaign that led them to that first round bye. And I think without him, they don't get that
Yeah.
first round bye. I don't think they win that Super Bowl. So he's got to look at the
No.
statue of his backup, every time he
I
walks
still
out the
can't believe
city.
I'm still mind blown from the episode where you pointed out that they even had a statue. I didn't know it was
Yeah,
a thing. Like I
yeah.
can't believe, bro. Like,
Both those guys are gone now. That whole regime is
Philly,
gone.
Philly is
And for them,
struggling.
yeah.
They'll throw
Well, then
anybody on
after
a
that,
statue.
Howie Roseman came out, a couple of years back.
He's probably mad he ain't got a statue. I'd be
So
mad if I didn't have a
right.
statue. Like
So
Nick
so
Foles
he
got a
came out like a
statue and
few
I
years
don't.
ago and he said that they want the Eagles to be a quarterback factory in a press conference. He said we want to be known as a quarterback factory.
Does he think
And
he's a college coach or what does he think here?
no, it was Howie Roseman, the GM.
Right, right. But like,
Yeah.
is in his mind, is he like a college, like a factory? Like, no, what?
Yeah, like
What?
if you've got a guy that you're paying this money to that you want to sign that's had that MVP level, and at that point he's still playing at an extremely high level, and you're saying like we want to be a quarterback factory. That I mean, what are you doing, dude? And then so you go from that. He's got the injury history, where he's hurt in that Seattle game, and then the next year you go out and draft his replacement in the second round. And I mean, this is just they played this about as worse as they could with a franchise quarterback. And that's why you normally don't see guys, like Carson Wentz at the age of 27 who has
I
been
remember I saw a clip on
it's
Bleacher
crazy.
Report. I saw a clip on Bleacher Report. It was Doug Peterson, and I want to say it was like the Broncos coach at the time, or who, I'm not sure. It was several years ago. Talking about like how talented Carson Wentz was, and was like, yeah, this guy's special. His work ethic, his blah 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 blah. Like the only way, like he's gonna be a star, and the only way he's not is if we mess him up. You know what I'm saying? Ha ha ha! Like
Well,
chuckle chuckle, and then turns out, hey, you guys kind of did probably fuck him up. Like, I mean, there's no, well, we're gonna find out, but like, I wish I had the video to pull up,
yeah,
but yeah, I
look,
mean,
I think for a third round pick, it's well worth. You know.
absolutely.
And then
That's kind of
and
that's
look,
the
if it ends up being a first round pick, that means something went right.
hmm
And at that
right.
point, I'm fine. But I think even keeping their second round pick this year, I think that's a huge win for Indianapolis. And I just we'll see how it works out. Like you said, this is probably his last shot, honestly, because I don't think if he can succeed in Indianapolis,
It's backup
it's
roles from here
well,
on
yeah,
out.
it's either backup or he might be out of the league completely. Um,
Oh, he's too young for that. He'll be a backup somewhere,
but
but
I think it's I'm trying to find like the right words here.
I mean, the
I,
big thing is
I,
like
I think that they
Dak Prescott is the best quarterback out of that draft class, like 100% confirmed at this point. Like it was Jared Goff and Carson Wentz are 1 and 2. Dak was the guy in the in the later rounds. It was like the mid round hit. And it's like you taking Goff or Wentz over Dak at this point.
uh
I'm not.
probably not.
I'm
Probably
comfortable.
not.
I'm really comfortable saying that Dak Prescott is the best quarterback. So, like, of all the misses the Cowboys have had, and granted, some of those misses include mismanaging Dak Prescott himself.
Yeah.
Um, that that's the best quarterback out of that draft at this point, and it's just like that. This should be even more like flags popping up. Like, hey, Cowboys, you guys need to pay this guy now. Like, don't let him come out and ball this season and then try to re-sign him. Like re-sign him right now. He deserves it. He's earned it. Give
Yeah.
Dak Prescott his money.
Yeah, and
But
it's
I
wild to
mean,
see some of these quarterbacks become like like Stafford and Wentz and possibly Dak. Might be disgruntled. There's been some talk. With the whole Russell Wilson thing. I don't think he's going anywhere.
no,
But I
I
mean
wish, but
Deshaun Watson. I mean this isn't your granddad's NFL.
no.
Quarterback movement was extremely rare just even a few years ago,
hmm
and pretty much with what Brady and Rivers and some of these guys did last year, I mean, even that's almost unheard of.
The NFL's gone full NBA on
Yeah,
us.
it is, man. It truly is, and it's something special to watch. I think too. Like It's very interesting.
I mean, if you listen to the last episode, you already know, but I love seeing the players have the power, man. Like, give them the power. This is
Yeah, I
their
think
legacy. This is their shot at their one shot at making a career out
I
of
think it
their
lies somewhere in
life's
the middle.
work.
I think teams need to be protected. But at the
They
same
got enough protection. Fuck the teams, man.
I mean,
They
can you
got
be? I mean, yeah. I mean, would you be saying that? If Aaron Donald at the age of 26 was like, "Fuck it, get me out of here."
Aaron Donald held out until he got a contract, and the
Yeah,
Rams paid
exactly.
him
But they
what
didn't trade him.
no, but because they paid him what he was due, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what he deserves.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The
It's like,
Rams did
yeah,
right
they
by
deserve
him.
some protection as far as like
No, they don't deserve shit. They
if they pay a dude.
got money. They got
No, I mean, look, we both know the extenuating circumstance. We're both on the same page with Deshaun Watson. And like I said, we don't know what really happened with Carson Wentz. I do know that already, like he was FaceTiming because I know Kenny Moore posted the FaceTime. It was him and Wentz, and then they had like a few other Colts players. They were already FaceTiming tonight. Like, and Carson Wentz has just got this huge shit-eating grin on his
oh, he's got to
face.
be so happy to be out of that shit
I'll show you
show.
the picture real quick.
He's got to be so happy, bro. I can't
Well, like I said,
imagine.
I think the biggest thing that nobody's talking about is not even due to football in this trade. It's like, as a man, I think
No,
him
yeah,
and
I
Frank
agree.
Wright just,
I agree.
here you go, see if you can see this real quick.
Yeah, look, he hadn't looked that happy in 2 years, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
he's just
come
got a big
on,
smile.
man.
He's so excited. And
He's
plus, I mean,
so
he gets out of
happy.
Philadelphia. I mean, you know how he is, big John Deere, 12 gauge. Let's go
Yeah,
hunting. You get to come to Indiana, man. There's great farmland. I mean, it's almost a
bro.
perfect North Dakota guy. And then
I'm happy, and I hope. Shout out to Bleacher Report shared a post of it. Shout out to the little kid that's like a
oh my
huge
gosh,
Carson Wentz
yes.
fan. Like
Yeah,
I hope that God Indy brings him out and buys him a jersey and brings him to a game like that. Oh, sport like my family and sports are like the only two things in this world that can tear at my heartstrings, bro. And
that
that video of that kid just like,
bro, I was legit in my work vehicle. Like I legit
oh,
like there's like I shed a couple tears whenever like
yeah,
because I told Emily because we were talking about it earlier about that video, and I was like, yeah, like I kind of started tearing up a little bit, and she's like, why? And I was like, because I've been there. Like I've got like I had to
yeah.
watch my I had to watch my hero get cut and go to another team, and like whenever it happened, dude, it broke me. Like it was just such a shame.
Whenever the Cardinals decided to not, extend Albert Pujols and he signed
Pujols,
with the
yeah,
Angels, I was at WKCTC in the library studying for a test and saw the shit come across, bro. And I'm sitting here at a computer trying to study for a test, like tears falling down my face.
yeah.
Like I got a test in like an hour, and I'm sitting here in the library trying to study, and I'm learning about Pujols that he's gonna sign with the Angels, and it's just like we've all,
Oh yeah.
if sports has been a
Whenever
big part of your
whenever
life, like
That
you've been there,
Peyton Manning hit that, his voice started quivering. He goes, "It's been my pleasure to be your quarterback." And I lost it. I was done. Like I was gone. And
Somebody cut the commercial.
yeah, so it's like seeing that little kid now, and he's just like, you're my hero. I started
We've all
crying,
been there,
and I was
man.
like, oh
We've
my
all been there. If you've been a sports fan since you were a kid, you've been in that kid's shoes, and you know
yeah.
what
I
it's
told Emily,
like.
I
And
just like I've never wanted to hug somebody more than I wanted to
right,
hug that
like,
kid.
hey, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I told her, I was like, look, man, like I'll buy that little kid a jersey. Like he can
right?
come,
Yeah.
like I'll pay for him to come to a game. Like, yeah, like I think Ursay's such a good owner that I think
That
something
would be like the feel good story of the year if they reached out to him and got him to to a Colts game and got him to meet Carson
yeah.
Wentz and
As
stuff,
long as
man. It would just
everything's
be too
safe
good.
still and stuff like that. Because I mean, he does have some kind of I can't remember which disease it is, but he does have kind of a
Right.
rare disease.
Yeah.
So as long as things are safe for sure. But yeah, it's that video.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
it pretty much it tore my heart to pieces.
I-
Uh, but yeah, man.
I've been sitting
So
here like, and I can't even knock him or other people. Like I've been sitting like, I watched a video of Pujols coming back. I was at Bush Stadium for the Friday night and the Saturday afternoon. Like Friday night whenever Puls made his first return, Saturday afternoon whenever he hit the home run and stuff like that. Like I was at both of those games, and still I'm sitting here watching YouTube a couple of days ago. Just like for whatever reason, YouTube recommended these
Oh
videos to
yeah.
me. Like I don't even know why I'm sitting here scrolling through YouTube. YouTube tells me I need to watch these, and I'm not gonna not watch them. And I'm sitting here get teary eyed like it's the first time seeing it. Like I wasn't there in person, and it's just like,
Oh yeah, dude. I
I
was
don't
there
know.
whenever Peyton returned to Indy for the first game, like when he was with the Broncos, and that first game back to Indianapolis, I got tickets to and went, and like they did the tribute. Like here I
Yeah,
am, like in the fucking stands, like they've got the tribute going on. He's walking in midfield and he's waving at everybody, and they're playing that tribute video, and I'm just fucking crying in the
you're
middle of it.
right. Yeah,
Like
it's just
100,000 people are like beside
yeah.
me, and everybody's cheering. Um,
That's how,
and
yeah, that's exactly how it was. The Friday night Bulls came back to St. Louis. I wasn't, obviously it was Busch Stadium, so I was surrounded by Cardinals fans. And I look to my left, look to my right, and it's hard to find somebody that doesn't have tears in their eyes. Like, and it's just like, man, if you it's a cool thing to have that connection with sports. And I mean, people that don't have that connection, it's hard to understand why they care so much. But like, just
yeah,
see it, like it's just so refreshing to see that kid that's so young, but he has that connection, and like sports has already affected his life that way. It's such a powerful thing, man. There's no prejudice. There's no
nah,
it's
everybody,
just pure love and pure passion, man. And it's just so
and
cool to
especially
see.
somebody in his shoes that
Right,
is
man. He's got
battling.
so much other shit he could worry about.
Yeah, yeah, and
It's
and
so cool,
I
man.
think too that that speaks to the character and kind of a man of who Carson Wentz is. That he takes time out of his day, because apparently like they're actually like pretty close. Like him and Carson Wentz are like they've met
Right,
and they FaceTime and they still talk to each other on the phone and stuff like that. And just knowing, that that's the kind of quarterback we're bringing in to an already really good culture, and a
right,
really good locker room.
right.
And just seeing that smile on Carson Wentz's face, just talking to the players and everybody
Yeah.
ready to get to work. Like, I think, I think this works out. I think it works out. And if it doesn't,
Yeah.
then it doesn't. We'll see where we're at in a couple years. But as of right now, I'm going to be rooting for Carson Wentz, which I mean, I told everybody, 2 episodes ago, like, you know, I could
And
say
I've
talk about
got
as
it.
bad
I've
as
got him in
mechanics
our
are and how much I'm on the fence, but the moment that dude wears blue, man, it's a
got
whole
him in our
level.
dynasty league, man. So you got to do is holler at me. You can have
Nah,
your,
I,
your.
I'm good. I got my homes. I think I'm all right.
Yeah, yeah. We could do a flip flop for them two guys.
Yeah,
Ooh, hey, dude, just don't act like me. I went out as soon as the Rams traded for Stafford. I went out and traded for him in our dynasty league. So,
well, you got a little bit more quarterback issues than I do.
but yeah,
Yeah,
I, I
I
don't
don't think
I don't
I'm
know,
benching
man.
Patrick Mahomes to play Carson Wentz next year.
Hey, I mean, I traded away the 2020 league MVP to get Stafford, so
Oof.
but I mean, I don't know, man. I'm excited. This move just makes me even so much
I
more
think it's
excited for the
funny
NFL
too that
season.
like I was thinking earlier today, I think it's hilarious that we do this show together, and you're a Rams fan, I'm a Colts fan, and we're the two teams that have made these big quarterback swings, and
Right,
it's
yeah.
just like it sets up content perfectly,
Yeah.
and it's very, and we're both Cardinals fan, and then the Cardinals decide to go out and
It's
get
been a
Monday.
hell of an off season
Dude,
for
it's
both of us,
been
man.
nuts, and like the
The
thing
free
is,
agent ain't even started.
yeah, I was gonna
Right?
say, like, that's the thing is, like, we haven't even like really got started in the off season. Like, we're at the very beginning, and it's just
Yeah,
like constant shits going on. It's
yeah. I love
here
these
I am.
leagues.
I've got to be at work in like 6 hours, and I'm here cutting this, and I'm not even tired. I'm just up, I'm up talking shit.
Oh, those type of moves, man. It just like it just you get it's just excitement and
Yeah, I mean, and
energy.
I'll wake up in 5 hours, and I'll be, shit.
You're right. But
I've
then
just
just
done
just
that.
go to YouTube, watch some 2017 Carson Wentz YouTube highlights, and that's just like coffee. Now
Yeah.
that he's a Colt and you're a Colts fan, just go watch some 2017 Wentz highlights and you'll be up ready.
Well, I don't even know if I can go back that far. I mean, I'd probably hit some 29, just something a little more recent, but yeah, it's exciting times, and you know, Ballard. Ballard did it again. We'll see if it works out. But if it doesn't, there's not really a lot of assets they gave up. So,
Right.
and but anyway, we'll go ahead. I know we said this is going to be a short episode, but you guys know how
There's no such thing.
you know by now. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Obviously, we have our normal scheduled episode. We'll be doing Monday night, so we'll have that out for you guys.
Sure.
I'm sure we might touch on a little bit more. We'll see what happens, but we're gonna go ahead and end it. Sorry. And just make sure like, subscribe on YouTube. We've got that on there. Hit us up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you comment, rate the videos, rate the episodes. Give us some comments. Let us know what kind of more content you guys want to see, and we would definitely love to have some guests on here definitely soon. Even
Absolutely.
even as soon as Monday. I mean, if it's something you're interested in and you're listening to this right now, um, hit one of us up. We've got 2 or 3 days that we can get something worked out with you. And so we would definitely love to have some people on. But we're going to go ahead and end this here. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you here in a few days.